He's not screaming. He's not bleeding. He's already gone, and yet the room feels alive. A man lies in his bathtub, his head resting gently on a blood-soaked cloth, his arm falling like that of a saint in repose. This is not death. This is devotion. Jacques-Louis David called it the Death of Marat, but what he painted was a revolution turned into religion. Jean-Paul Marat, the man who turned ink into fire, a journalist, a radical, a voice that demanded heads for freedom. He was hated by the powerful, worshipped by the poor, and doomed by both. On July 13, 1793, Charlotte Corday came to his door, not with words, but with a knife. And when the blade fell, David saw not a corpse, but a martyr. The light falls from nowhere, a divine spotlight in a room without windows. David removes all detail, all chaos, all noise, until only one thing remains: purity. The bathtub becomes an altar, the knife a relic, the letter in his hand a final gospel. It's not realism, it's worship. David and Marat were not strangers. They were brothers in revolution. Two men who believed that art and politics were weapons made of the same fire. When Marat died, David didn't just lose a friend. He lost his faith, so he painted a new one. Marat's skin glows like marble. His wounds are soft, almost sacred. Death has never looked so peaceful. But look closer, and you'll see that the peace is not real. David's painting is not mourning. It's transformation. He takes flesh and turns it into philosophy. He takes a body and turns it into belief. After Marat's death, Paris trembled. The revolution had lost its voice. And so David decided, if the man was gone, the myth must live. He placed Marat not on a bed, but on a stage, not in decay, but in light. He stripped the scene of horror and left only purity, sacrifice, and faith. This was not a painting. It was resurrection, crafted for a nation that needed something holy to believe in again. Every element is deliberate. The quill, the pen that fueled revolutions. The letter, a symbol of trust betrayed. The knife, barely visible, as if the violence has already been forgiven. David knew exactly what he was doing. He painted not for the eye, but for the soul of France, and the soul believed. To understand this painting, you must stop thinking politically and start seeing spiritually. Marat is no longer a man. He is light. His death, no longer tragedy, but transformation. David's brush baptizes him in shadow and radiance. The blood becomes sacred water. The wound, a door. And through that door, the revolution finds its God. Look at his arm. It falls like the arm of Christ in Michelangelo's Pieta. The white cloth beneath him, a shroud. The wound, a stigmata. David wasn't hiding his reference. He was declaring it. He painted Marat as the Messiah of reason, a man who died not for heaven, but for humanity. And for a brief, terrifying moment, the revolution became a religion with its own saints. Everything in this painting obeys geometry, a triangle of purity and death. The ink pot, the box, the letter, each placed like offerings at an altar. Even the folds of the towel lead your eye to the quiet holiness of his face. This is control, the control of grief through order, of chaos through beauty. David believed that if you could design pain, you could transcend it. Marat was not a saint. He ordered deaths. He spread terror with his pen. But David didn't paint the man. He painted the idea. And ideas are dangerous because once they're painted beautifully enough, they stop being questioned. This is the paradox of art. It can turn lies into truths and murder into miracles. David knew this, and he did it anyway. After this painting, David became more than an artist. He became the official painter of the revolution, the architect of its soul. He designed public funerals, painted heroes as gods, and made tragedy look divine. But beneath the beauty was control, the kind that replaces thought with worship. Years later, when the revolution devoured itself, David survived by serving a new master, Napoleon. He painted the emperor like he once painted Marat, bathed in gold, radiant with destiny. And once again, the line between truth and illusion disappeared beneath the weight of beauty. That's the curse of genius. To know that art can shape the world, but never control what it becomes. 2 centuries later, the Death of Marat still feels dangerous. It hangs in silence, calm, pure, hypnotic, but if you look long enough, you can feel it breathing. It whispers about faith disguised as truth, and beauty used as power. It reminds us that every masterpiece is also a weapon. David once said, "To paint is to think, and to think is to rule." But this painting rules in silence. It doesn't demand belief. It simply seduces it. The Death of Marat is not a scene from history. It's a prophecy of how easily light can be turned into darkness, and how beauty, once worshipped, can outlive the truth that made it.